The chamber was silent, but it did not feel peaceful that it was round, smooth, and made of pale metal that reflected light without warmth. No corners, no shadows, nothing to hide in. The air smelled clean, almost sweet, like it was trying to pretend this place was gentle. But it was not. Lyra stood in the center of the room. She was small compared to the machines around her. Her skin shimmered faintly with soft blue patterns, dim now from fear and exhaustion. Thin bands of light wrapped around her wrists, ankles, and waist, holding her in place. They did not burn. They did not cut. They were worse than pain. They were final dot above her. Symbols glowed in a slow rhythm. One light faded. Another appeared. A countdown. Lyra did not understand the numbers, but she understood what they meant. Time was running out. She lowered her head, long silver hair falling over her face. Her hands trembled as much as the restraints allowed. Her heart beat fast, then faster, like it was trying to escape her body before the rest of her was taken. She was Velari. Her people were known across the stars for their empathy. They felt emotions deeply and shared them freely. They believed life should always be chosen, never forced. For generations, they refused to dominate, refused to conquer. That belief had made them weak in the eyes of others. When the wars came, the Velari did not fight back hard enough. When the treaties were written, their voices were ignored. When the slavers arrived, no fleets came to save them. Lyra had been a student. She studied stars, not weapons. She had been helping children board an evacuation ship when the soldiers came. She still remembered the screams, the smoke, the heavy hands pulling her away, while others escaped. Now she was here. This place was called a Genetic Continuity Facility. That was the official name. It sounded important, scientific, clean. The truth was simple and cruel. This was a breeding chamber. Lyra squeezed her eyes shut as a soft hum filled the room. The machines around the walls shifted slightly, preparing. They did not care that she was afraid. They did not care that she did not consent. To them, she was not a person. She was a function. A tear slipped down her cheek. She whispered in her own language, so quiet that even the walls could not hear her. It was not a prayer to gods. Her people had never believed in distant saviors. It was a memory. She remembered her mother's voice, calm and warm, telling her that kindness mattered even when it hurt. She remembered open skies filled with golden light. She remembered laughing with friends, believing the universe was wide enough for everyone. The counter above her pulsed faster. Her breathing became shallow. Her chest hurt, like something heavy was pressing down on her from the inside. She wanted to scream, but fear stole her voice. She wanted to fight, but there was nothing to strike. Footsteps echoed outside the chamber. They were slow, confident, unhurried. Lyra knew those steps. She had heard them before, in the halls, during inspections. They belonged to people who believed they were right. People who believed the law protected them. Knees felt weak, so this is the last. One, a voice said beyond the wall, calm, bored. Prepare. The cycle. The machines answered with a deeper. Lyra's vision blurred. The room felt smaller, tighter, like it was closing in on her. She pressed her forehead against the invisible barrier in front of her, as if she could push through it by will alone. Please, she thought, though she did not know who. She was asking. The countdown reached its final phase. Then, something went wrong. The hum stuttered. The lights flickered. For the first time since she had been brought here, the chamber made a sound that was not controlled. A sharp crack echoed through the room. The symbols above her glitched, flashing erratically. Lyra lifted her head. Confusion cutting through her fear. An alarm tried to activate, but failed halfway. Choking into silence, then the wall exploded inward. Metal tore apart. Smoke and sparks filled the chamber. Heat washed over her face. Lyra screamed, more from shock than pain, through the smoke. A tall figure stepped forward, not a slaver, not a machine, something else. Broad shoulders, heavy armor, one eye glowing faint blue through the haze. A human dot, and for the first time since the countdown had begun. Time stopped feeling like an enemy. The wall had barely finished smoking when the human stepped fully into the chamber. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. Her heart, which had felt like a drum about to burst, now raced faster, not with fear, but with a fragile, trembling hope. The human was tall, with broad shoulders that filled the doorway, and his armor was scratched, scarred, and clearly used in battle she could not imagine. One eye glowed faintly blue, scanning the room with precision and calm. He did not rush toward her. He did not hesitate. Instead, he paused, reading the machines, reading her, reading the room. His weapon was raised, but not at her. Sparks danced across the floor as he fired at the nearest console, and a shower of molten metal rained down. The chains of light around Lyra's wrists flickered, weakened, then collapsed silently, as if surrendering to his presence. Lyra collapsed to her knees, the sudden freedom too much for her trembling legs. The human moved fast, faster than her eyes could track, and caught her before she hit the floor. His hands were strong, steady, protective. For a moment, he just held her. And the smoke and sparks swirled around them like a storm, but inside that tiny space, she felt something she had not felt in days: safety. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice low and calm, but urgent. "You don't owe me anything. I just couldn't leave." She blinked, her lips parting, but words failed her. Her throat was tight. All she could do was stare, wide-eyed, at the human who had somehow become her lifeline. His gaze softened as he saw her fear, saw her exhaustion. The human looked toward the wall where the controls still flickered with sparks. "Can you run?" he asked, not as a command, but as a question. Lyra's mind struggled. Run? From what? From the humans who had brought her here. From the machines that had already tried to take her life. From the thought that hope was impossible. She nodded barely, because yes, she could. She had to. "Good," he said, his jaw tight, a flicker of determination in his glowing eye. "Then let's break a few rules." The room shook again. Alarms tried to roar, but the sparks and chaos drowned them out. The countdown had stopped, frozen mid-number, and Lyra realized she was not afraid of the time anymore. It was meaningless now. What mattered was this moment, this human, this impossible chance at escape. They moved together. Lyra stumbled at first. Her legs were weak from days of confinement. The human caught her quickly, adjusting her weight so they could move fast. The corridor outside was long, filled with blinking lights, humming machines, and automated defenses that had suddenly become obstacles. He did not pause for strategy. He moved like instinct, like a storm, tearing through barriers with precision and fury. A drone dropped from the ceiling, its red eye glowing like a warning. The human shot it without hesitation, his aim perfect. Sparks flew again. The drone crashed to the floor. Lyra's chest tightened, not from fear, but from awe. She had never seen anyone move like that. She had never seen anyone care enough to risk themselves for someone like her. "They told us these facilities were legal," he said as they ran. "That it was cultural, efficient." His words came out between heavy breaths, but there was no apology in them. He was explaining, not excusing. "But humans," he continued, "we have a problem. We don't do well with systems that treat people like tools." They reached a large metal door. It was locked, glowing red, sealed tight. The human did not hesitate. He slammed his shoulder against it. Sparks flew. The metal bent. Lyra's heart hammered. "You don't have to understand," he said, almost to himself, almost to her. "You just have to know that if I decide something is wrong, I will stop it. No matter the cost." For the first time, Lyra felt the weight of hope settle on her shoulders. It was fragile, fragile like a flame in the wind, but it was alive. And the human was its guardian. Together, they moved deeper into the corridors. The countdown that had once terrified her was gone, replaced by the human's steady pace, his glowing eye, his quiet words, and the knowledge that she was no longer alone. Somewhere, deep inside, she felt something stirring, a spark of trust, a flicker of courage, and an understanding she had not dared to believe. Humans, at their best, were willing to stand against impossible odds for someone who mattered, even if that someone was a stranger. And right now, she mattered. The corridors stretched endlessly, pale metal walls reflecting the harsh red alarms that had begun to flare. Lyra's legs shook, her body still weak from confinement. Her breaths came in short, ragged gasps, but she forced herself to keep moving. She had no choice. Not with the machines and soldiers closing in. Not with the memory of that countdown still pulsing in her mind. The human moved beside her, silent in his focus, yet always aware of her presence. Each step he took was careful, measured, but deadly precise when the obstacles appeared. A turret swung down from the ceiling, its laser eye glowing. He didn't hesitate. One shot from his weapon sent it spinning into sparks. Lyra flinched, but he reached for her hand, gripping it gently, guiding her past the danger. They told their laws were unbreakable, he said quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. That efficiency mattered more than life. His words were sharp, angry, but he didn't look at her as he said them. Instead, his gaze scanned every corner, every shadow. We humans, we don't care about rules like that if someone is suffering. The words confused her, warmed her, and terrified her all at once. She had never known a species that fought because someone needed saving, not because it was convenient or profitable. Her people had fled or hidden. They had survived, yes, but rarely had anyone stepped in to fight for them. And now this human, stranger in every sense, was risking everything for her. A door ahead slammed shut with a hiss. Automatic locks activated. Lyra froze. Panic clawed at her chest. The countdown from before had vanished, but the feeling of inevitability remained. She thought of the machines, the chains, the moments that had almost been forced upon her. She shook her head. She could not let it end like that. "Follow me," the human said, his voice calm but firm. Without waiting for a response, he pressed a panel, triggering a small explosion that blew the door open. Smoke filled the corridor, stinging her eyes. She coughed, blinded, but he stayed close, letting his hand rest on her back, guiding her forward. Every instinct screamed to run faster, but her body begged for rest. Still, she moved, step by trembling step, because he believed she could. They ran through hallways filled with fire and sparks, the alarms a constant scream behind them. Machines fell in their path, sparks flying as the human crushed drones underfoot, destroyed cameras, and hacked doors in seconds. Lyra tried to keep her mind on the path ahead, but her thoughts wandered. Why would he risk so much for me? She wondered. Humans were powerful, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel. Yet here he was, risking everything for someone he did not even know. "They think people like you are property," he said suddenly, breaking the roar of alarms. "They call it law. They call it culture. They call it efficient. But it's not." He glanced at her, and for a moment, his eyes softened. "You're alive. You're a person, and that matters more than all their rules." The words struck her like a tidal wave. No one had ever said that to her before. Not in months. Not since the soldiers had dragged her here. Not since the machines had prepared to take her as an object. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but her throat felt raw, her voice gone. Instead, she nodded, feeling tears sting her eyes. They rounded a corner and ran into another obstacle, a group of soldiers, armed and moving fast. The human's weapon raised, and he stepped forward without hesitation, placing himself directly in front of Lyra. "You will not touch her," he said. His voice steady, a line of unbreakable defiance. The soldiers laughed. "One human? You're alone. Step aside, or you die with her." The human did not flinch. "I don't care how many of you there are. She is not yours." Lyra froze, terrified, but also something else. Awe, hope, something her people had almost forgotten existed. The human was dangerous. The humans were dangerous, yes, but he was dangerous for them, for anyone who tried to hurt the innocent. A shot rang out. Sparks and metal flew. The human moved like lightning, his hands, eyes, and body all in perfect coordination. He blocked, dodged, and struck, keeping her safe as they fought their way forward. Lyra stumbled, but he caught her, his grip firm, unwavering. Her chest burned, not just from running, but from the realization that she had been saved, not by chance, not by luck, but by someone who believed in the simple truth that her life mattered. And in that moment, running through smoke and chaos, Lyra felt something she had not felt in a long time, the stirring of courage, the spark of trust, the knowledge that, even in the darkest places, someone could stand in the fire and refuse to let it consume her. She glanced at the human, their eyes meeting for the briefest second, and something unspoken passed between them. It was more than gratitude. It was hope. It was survival. It was the beginning of a bond that neither had chosen, yet both needed. Behind them, alarms screamed, machines roared, and the facility itself seemed to collapse. But ahead there was a chance. And this time, Lyra was not running alone. The corridor ended in a wide chamber, and Lyra's breath hitched as she saw what awaited them. Soldiers, armed to the teeth, formed a wall of danger. Their red eyes reflected in the metal floor, their weapons raised with terrifying precision. She froze, panic curling in her stomach. Her legs felt like lead, her heart pounding like a drumbeat of doom. The human did not hesitate. He stepped forward, placing himself directly between Lyra and the soldiers. "Stop," he said, his voice calm but unyielding, carrying the weight of someone who had already made a choice he could not undo. "She is not yours." The soldiers laughed, a harsh, cruel sound that made Lyra flinch. One of them barked, "You are alone. Step aside, human, or we will take both of them." The human did not move an inch. His glowing blue eyes scanned them all, measuring, calculating, deciding. "I'm not alone," he said. "I have enough to stand right here and stop you. Try me." Lyra's chest tightened. The fear was almost unbearable. How could one human face so many? But when she looked at him, something inside her shifted. She saw a determination that did not come from power alone. It came from care, from conviction, from a refusal to let evil triumph. The soldiers advanced, firing warning shots. Sparks erupted from the walls, and the room filled with smoke. The human moved with deadly precision, taking cover, returning fire, and keeping Lyra safe behind him. Each moment felt stretched, the tension so thick it pressed on her chest like water. One soldier lunged toward her. The human was faster. He grabbed the attacker's arm, twisting and disarming him in a single motion. Lyra barely had time to register the move before he shoved her toward the next cover point. "Stay down!" he shouted. Her mind raced. In Velari culture, such violence was horrifying, yet necessary here. She hated that it had come to this, but she could not deny the truth. This human was saving her life. Not because it was ordered, not because of law or reward, but because he chose to. Another wave of soldiers advanced, more heavily armed than the last. The human did not hesitate. He fired, ducked, rolled, and struck with precise movements that seemed impossible for one person. Lyra stayed low, trembling, but she noticed the small details. The human's eyes never left her. The hand that brushed her shoulder as they moved, the quick reassurance in his voice. Every act, every motion was a silent promise. I will not let you die. Suddenly, the floor beneath the soldiers trembled. The human had triggered a secondary trap. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and several soldiers were thrown off balance. He used the chaos, moving forward like a force of nature, clearing a path for Lyra. Her heart surged with a mix of fear and awe. She had never imagined anyone could be so fearless, so determined. One soldier, desperate and enraged, rushed at them with a blade. The human met him head-on, dodging and striking with fluid precision. Lyra gasped, clutching her chest, terrified but unable to look away. Every second was a dance between life and death, and she was at the center. Protected by someone who did not flinch, when the last soldier fell or fled, the room was silent again, except for their heavy breathing and the faint hum of damaged machinery. Lyra sank to her knees, trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. She wanted to say something, to express the overwhelming mix of fear, relief, and gratitude, but words failed her. The human crouched beside her, resting a firm hand on her shoulder. You're safe, he said softly. For now. But we need to move. She looked at him, her mind struggling to understand the intensity of what had just happened. He had risked everything for her, a stranger. For someone who had no claim on him, no reason but moral conviction. That was human, she realized. That was what made them unpredictable and terrifying, but also capable of heroism beyond measure. And in that moment, Lyra felt something awaken inside her. Courage, trust, a fragile hope that perhaps she was not doomed. That perhaps life could be reclaimed even in the darkest places. The human helped her to her feet. Come on, he said. We're not finished yet. There's a way out, and I won't let anything stop us. As they moved toward the next corridor, Lyra glanced back at the fallen soldiers and the flickering alarms. The facility was a cage of metal and despair, but for the first time, she saw a crack in it. Someone had come for her. Someone had drawn a line in the dark and refused to move. And for Lyra, that line was everything. Smoke still hung heavy in the corridors, curling in gray clouds around broken machinery and flickering lights. Lyra stumbled forward, leaning on the human for support. Her legs felt weak, trembling under the strain of hours of running, fear, and confinement. Every step was painful, but she moved because she could not stop. Not now. Not when freedom felt so close. The human guided her through the wreckage, never letting go of her hand or her side. His armor was scratched, scorched in places, and his face was smeared with ash and sweat. But he moved with a purpose that seemed unstoppable. Each obstacle, each threat, he faced without hesitation, always keeping her in the center of his protection. You're stronger than you think, he said quietly, his voice calm but firm. You've been through a lot, but you're still here. That means something. Lyra swallowed hard. She wanted to believe him, wanted to feel that strength he described, but fear still clung to her. Fear of the facility, the slavers, the machines that had tried to control her. Fear of the life she had lost and the unknown that awaited her. Yet, with him by her side, the weight of it seemed lighter, more bearable. They rounded a corner and found themselves in the hangar bay. Ships sat in silence, some burning, others damaged, but all a chance to escape. The human led her toward the nearest vessel, checking quickly for obstacles and enemies. Lyra noticed how methodical he was, how every movement was measured yet instinctive. She had never seen anyone fight for another so completely, so without hesitation. A distant alarm echoed, warning that reinforcements were coming. The human's jaw tightened. We're cutting it close, he muttered. But we can make it. Lyra's chest ached not from running, but from the sight of him putting everything at risk for her. He was injured, exhausted, and still moving forward as if nothing could stop him. It was frightening and beautiful at the same time. She wanted to tell him how much she appreciated him, how much his courage meant to her, but the words seemed small, almost useless, in the face of what he had done. Why? Why are you helping me? She finally asked, her voice barely audible over the hum of alarms and machinery. He looked at her, his glowing eyes softening, and for the first time, a faint smile touched his lips. Because it's right, he said simply. Because someone has to. Someone has to stand when no one else will. You shouldn't have been trapped. You didn't deserve any of this. And I can't just walk away knowing that. Lyra felt a tear slip down her cheek. She had never expected anyone to see her as a person, not a tool or a statistic. Not since the slavers had taken her. And yet, here he was, risking everything for her life, for her freedom. That realization sent a warmth through her that had been absent for so long. They reached the ship, its ramp extending like an invitation. The human helped her aboard, scanning the area one last time. He took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging for a moment, the exhaustion breaking through the mask of determination. Lyra watched him, realizing that even heroes were human, capable of pain, fatigue, and doubt. But he never let it stop him from doing what was right. The doors closed behind them, sealing them in. The hangar bay erupted into chaos outside, with alarms, sirens, and distant explosions. Lyra sank onto the floor of the ship, finally allowing herself to breathe. The human sat beside her, his hand resting lightly on her arm. Neither spoke at first. Words were not necessary. The silence between them was a shared acknowledgement of everything they had survived together. "You're safe now," he said after a while, his voice gentler. "At least for the moment. But you need to know. You're not alone anymore." Lyra nodded, tears streaking her face. She had believed herself powerless, alone, and doomed. But now, with the human beside her, she understood something new. Courage could be contagious, hope could be given. And someone could stand for you when you could not stand for yourself. As the ship lifted off, escaping the facility that had tried to claim her, Lyra looked out at the stars. For the first time in what felt like forever, she saw possibilities instead of traps, life instead of chains. She felt the human's steady presence beside her, and a fragile, glowing hope grew in her heart. She did not know what awaited them beyond the stars, but she knew this. Someone had chosen to fight for her. And that choice had changed everything. The stars streaked past the ship's windows as it soared away from the wrecked facility. Lyra sat quietly, her hands clasped together, staring at nothing and everything at once. Her body was exhausted, her muscles screaming from the constant running and fighting, but her mind could not rest. Images of chains, flashing lights, and the cold, unfeeling machinery haunted her still. The human sitting across from her seemed calm. But she noticed the subtle lines on his face, the exhaustion in his posture, the faint bloodstain on his armor. He had risked everything for her, yet he said nothing about pain or fatigue. He simply existed, a silent sentinel beside her, letting her recover while staying alert to anything outside. "Do you understand what you just went through?" he asked gently, breaking the silence. His voice was soft, almost tentative, as if unsure how much she could bear to hear. Lyra shook her head. I think I understand fear," she whispered. Her voice was small, but there was a weight to it now, a truth she had never allowed herself to feel fully until this moment. "And I think I understand hope." He nodded, a small, approving motion. "Humans do strange things," he said lightly, a hint of humor that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We make mistakes, we hurt people sometimes. But when we see injustice, we tend to act." She tilted her head, curious. "You act because it is right." He gave a short laugh, almost bitter. Sometimes just because you can't stand by. You see someone suffering, and the choice becomes simple. You help, even if it costs you everything. Lyra's hands shook slightly as she absorbed his words. They were foreign, yet they made sense. Her people had always valued peace, patience, and survival. But they had rarely seen anyone risk everything to protect another. She looked at him and realized that this human's courage was not about skill or strength. It was about the heart. The refusal to accept cruelty as normal. Hours passed in silence as the ship traveled farther from the facility. Lyra's thoughts wandered. She imagined the other Velari who might still be trapped, the ones who had not been lucky enough to encounter a human willing to defy the facility. A bitter pang of guilt struck her. She had been saved while so many others remained prisoners. They will tell others about this, the human said suddenly, as if reading her mind. Not the whole galaxy, but enough. Humans don't forget when someone risks their life for another. We talk, we act. Other species will notice. Lyra's blue eyes widened. Do you think it will matter? She asked quietly. That my life, my survival, could change things? He nodded firmly. It already has. Slavers will think twice before they take someone else. Survivors will find hope again. Sometimes one small act is enough to tip the balance. She leaned back in her seat, letting his words settle. For the first time since she had been captured, she allowed herself to believe in something larger than the walls that had confined her. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable, but not always dangerous. They could also be the spark that lit the darkness. The human glanced at her, seeing her contemplation. You're safe now, but your story, your life, it matters. Not just to you. To anyone who might hear it. Anyone who needs to know that someone will stand for them. Even when the world says they're nothing. Tears ran down Lyra's cheeks, this time not from fear, but from a swelling mix of relief, gratitude, and awe. She had been on the brink of losing everything, yet here she was alive, breathing, free. And not by luck, but because someone chose to fight for her. Because someone had drawn a line and refused to step back. The ship moved into the quiet of space, away from the chaos of the facility. Yet the impact of that one night, that one rescue, would ripple far beyond the walls Lyra had escaped. The story of a human standing against cruelty, risking life and limb to protect another, would spread. And even among species that distrusted humans, curiosity and hope would awaken. Lirr. I finally allowed herself to smile, a small fragile thing. She realized something powerful. Freedom was not just escaping chains. It was knowing someone valued you enough to fight for you. That knowledge could ignite courage, could inspire change, could teach even the darkest corners of the galaxy that some beings were willing to risk everything for the sake of right. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Lyra's heart felt lighter. Not because the danger was gone, there was still a long journey ahead, but because she had witnessed a truth stronger than fear. Humanity, in its own reckless, brave, impossible way, had arrived. The council chamber of the multi-species assembly was massive, brighter than any room Lyra had ever entered, yet somehow cold. Delegates from hundreds of worlds filled the space, their alien features sharp, soft, or strange to her eyes. They murmured quietly, shifting in their seats as Lyra stepped forward. Her legs were still trembling from the escape, but her mind had never felt sharper. She glanced at the human standing slightly behind her. He did not step forward, did not speak, yet his presence was a shield. His glowing eyes swept the room, calm and unwavering. For a moment, Lyra realized the truth. He did not need recognition. He had already done what mattered most. Taking a deep breath, she addressed the assembly. I speak for myself and for the Velari who could not be here. She began, her voice steady despite the lingering tremors of fear. I was captured. I was taken to a facility designed to strip me of choice, to treat me as property, not as a person. I thought my life was over. I thought no one would come for me. The chamber was silent. Even the distant hum of air systems seemed to pause. Lyra swallowed and continued. Then a human came. A stranger. Someone who could have ignored me. Someone who could have walked away. But he did not. He came, he risked everything, and he refused to let me be taken. He did not ask for reward. He did not ask for permission.